Hello fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to be talking about a short story by H.P. Lovecraft called Cool Air. And this is a quick Lovecraft short story. It doesn't have anything to do with elder gods or anything like that, although maybe they play a tiny bit of a role in this. It's about a guy that moves into a boarding house. He's kind of lonely and traveling around, and he moves into a boarding house. And while he is at this boarding house, one day he's laying down in his bed and he suddenly smells ammonia, and ammonia starts leaking through his ceiling. So of course he jumps up and goes and tells the lady that runs the boarding house, and she explains that living above him is a man named Dr. Munoz, and he is running some kind of experiments. She doesn't really understand, but it piques the interest of our narrator, and apparently he's a very good doctor. So later they clean up the ammonia and she figures out what's going on. But later, I think this main character starts having a heart attack and remembers that Dr. Munoz is a good doctor. So he runs up the stairs and knocks on his door, and Dr. Munoz figures it out right away. And then they start hanging out a ton, and there's something very creepy about Dr. Munoz, but he also really respects him. He seems like he has a lot of money and is a very educated man. So they start hanging out, and slowly we learn that he is trying to cheat death, trying to fight off death, and he constantly keeps the room cold, and he wants it colder and colder and colder. And one day the pump that runs the ammonia cooling system throughout the room breaks down, and chaos ensues. This is a quick and awesome short story by Lovecraft. It reads to me more like kind of traditional ghost stories than his more cosmic horror stuff does. So let me really quickly break down the publication history of this story, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the prose and stuff like that. So this story was first published in Tales of Magic and Mystery in March of 1928. And there's no information on who the cover artist is for this one. Next, it was included in the Arkham House, The Outsider and Others in 1939. This, of course, is a collection of short stories together by the I think it was Derleth, and I can't remember who the other guy was that ran Arkham House with him. If I got any of that wrong, let me know. Next, it was published in Weird Tales in September of 1939. Same year it came out in The Outsider and Others. Both The Outsider and Others cover and the Weird Tales for 1939 cover was by Virgil Finlay. Next, it came out in 1945 in The Best Supernatural Stories of H.P. Lovecraft. No cover artist on that one. And so on and so forth, until it was included in this anthology, Horror Times 10, which is where I've come across it. This is a Berkeley edition. It was 60 cents when it first came out. And this is 10 Chilling Tales of Horror. I don't know why, but the last two I've grabbed have been specifically 10 stories. That seemed to be the thing. And I do like just grabbing these off the shelf and seeing what these anthologies have to offer. I'm going to go over, I know for a fact, 3 of the authors in here so far: H.P. Lovecraft, August Derleth, and Robert E. Howard. But we're starting with this Lovecraft. But this is a very cool introduction. This was edited by Alden H. Norton, who's not a person I'm familiar with, but he wrote a cool introduction where he is talking about Sam Moskowitz, who is his friend. And so he and Moskowitz were at dinner, and Norton was bemoaning the fact that he's a collector of weird tales and horror fiction, but every anthology that comes out always has the same stories, and there's only so many times you can buy books that have all these stories and then 1 or 2 that you don't have. And saying this, he says, "Oh, you know, Sam Moskowitz, I wish that you were an authority on horror fiction like you are on science fiction." And Moskowitz said, "Well, I am." So each of the stories in here has an introduction by Moskowitz. So this is edited by Norton, but it has a write-up between every story by Moskowitz. And I knew I had Moskowitz on my shelf, and I assumed that it was science fiction, and it kind of is, but I'm surprised when I pulled the Moskowitz off my shelf that I do have. I have a book called Seekers of Tomorrow, and I opened it up, and all of it is, every chapter is just named after a different science fiction writer. E. Smith, John W. Campbell, Murray Leinster. And when I cracked this open, this is just him writing little biographies of every one of these science fiction writers. This looks awesome. And I'm going to start using this whenever I read a new author. I'm going to find them in here and see what Sam Moskowitz has to say about him. So I don't have any Sam Moskowitz fiction. I don't know if he wrote fiction. I have no idea, but boy, this book looks super cool. So I'm going to pull this out and always have this on hand. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent for talking about what I read about in Horror Times 10. So Norton tried to pick stories that were not often found anthologized, and Moskowitz would talk about the writers from each. So Cool Air is not one you hear talked about a lot when people talk about Lovecraft, but it was really good. As I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, boy, this just seems like kind of a Lovecraft homage to Edgar Allan Poe. It really felt like an Edgar Allan Poe story. And when I looked up the Wikipedia, it turns out that Lovecraft claimed this was very much inspired by an Edgar Allan Poe story. So here I've got my copy of The Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. This is, I think, a Franklin. No, let's see what mint this is here. It's got cool spooky pictures in there. Yeah, this is a Franklin library, and it's got the Henry Clark illustrations in there, and the Henry Clark illustrations of Poe are my absolute favorite. Absolutely incredible. I would like to also get the Poe illustrations by Gustave Doré, but they are very difficult to come by. But the short story that H.P. Lovecraft claims inspired this story is The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, which is one of my favorite Poe short stories. It's one where Poe posits that there's a doctor that is mesmerizing people. This is before the concept of hypnotizing. I think Mesmer was either right before Poe or simultaneously with Poe. I can't remember. But anyway, mesmerization was a new concept at the time. So Poe took it as far as he could in his imagination and imagined this case where somebody is mesmerized right before they die, and it keeps them in this state of being alive even though they are dead, which is really wild, really incredible. And I remember as a kid, this is one of the Poe stories that scared me the most. I would often spend evenings with my head in books, terrified, staying up late because I didn't dare to turn off the lights, and this is one of them that affected me thusly. And I remember there's a part where his assistant is sat there with the body and is terrified that the body's going to wake up. It's wonderfully done, really wonderfully done. I can see how this connects to this story, but Poe later came out and said actually it was another story that inspired him even more directly, and that is Arthur Machen's The Novel of the White Powder, which I haven't read yet. I do hope to do more Machen in the future, so eventually I'll read that one and we'll see how close it compares to this one. But apparently that is the one that really inspired Lovecraft for this one. Okay, from here on out there will be spoilers, so if you have not read Cool Air by H.P. Lovecraft and you'd like to, go check it out. I'm sure probably Horror Babble's done a reading of it, so spoilers from here on out. As these two become friends, it's slowly the state of this doctor starts to terrify the narrator, and this pump breaks down and he's unable to get it fixed in time, and Dr. Munoz freaks out and runs into the bathroom, and eventually, while the narrator's out running around trying to find ice, Dr. Munoz passes, and then the narrator comes upstairs, runs upstairs, and it turns out that he had died when he was 18 years old, that he'd been keeping himself alive through cool air, and this is why our narrator is afraid of cool air. So it's a fun story. I don't think the twist is anything amazing. I think it had been done a lot before, but it was still very well written and very well done by H.P. Lovecraft. A couple of interesting things connected to this story and Lovecraft's life. Number one, Lovecraft himself was not a huge fan of cool air, and people were always a little bit baffled by his response to cool air. Some people believe it's because he had some kidney failure, which eventually was part of the reason that he died early. But kidney failure can sometimes make people adverse to cool air. I don't know. That's just what the wiki article said. There are a few moments where his xenophobia and his racism stick out. They didn't age very well. Give it a look if you have not read Cool Air by H.P. Lovecraft. And if you like this video, click like. If you like this kind of content, click subscribe. Or if you'd like to help support the channel, go check out our Patreon. And thank you very much for watching.